my name is Meg Van Deventer. Let me just move back a slide. There we go. This is episode 10 of our Power Lunch demo series, How to Drive Accuracy and Efficiency When Quoting from Prints. I'm our customer education and enablement person at Paperless Parts. Some of you may recognize me. I saw a couple familiar faces in our registrations. I was an implementation project manager from 2021 until a couple of months ago, and I onboarded about 30 shops in that time. So primarily spent a lot of time training a wide variety of users on our functionality, especially when it comes to PDFs. So I'm very familiar with the inefficiency that can come from only receiving prints or drawings from your buyer. I know it's not a secret that we can provide more automation from CAD models, and we do encourage our users to ask for CAD models from their buyers as often as they can. You might have heard that from your AE or your IPM or maybe your CSM, but we also know that sometimes you just can't get one. Maybe they don't exist or your buyer isn't willing to give them to you guys. So that being said, we also think that quoting from a print is a strength that separates job shops from proto labs and organizations like that. You guys may not know this, I didn't, but half of part files that come through Paperless every day are actually not models, they are prints. So it's really important to us to invest in your ability to quote efficiently, quickly, and accurately from prints and Paperless parts. And that led to us shipping a series of improvements and updates to our PDF viewer in the beginning of January. I'm going to talk through some of those today. If you're an existing customer, they might look familiar or feel familiar, just a little bit of a different flavor, but I want to make sure I give you guys an idea of what you can do to get as much out of our PDF viewer as possible so you can stay in Paperless and not have to rely on other desktop apps or printouts. Thank you guys for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the question box. I will be answering them at the end, so just keep in mind we will chat through them, or you can hold them until our open Q&A, but thank you again for attending. So today's agenda, like I said, we're going to talk about improved PDF viewing and editing capabilities. We're going to explore those updated features that we think make Paperless Parts the best PDF viewer for job shop estimators, including page extraction. We're going to visually compare PDFs. So I know that buyers will sometimes send you guys revisions of a part either with a quote or with a PO, and we don't want you to miss changes that could increase cost to your shop. So we're going to talk about PDF comparison. And finally, we'll cover PDF redaction. So removing sensitive information from prints before sending to vendors without the process of printing out a drawing, putting a sticky note on it, having to scan it back in. Thank you guys. Give me 1 second here. I'm just going to have to reshare. Okay. Here we go. So if you guys don't have app.paperlessparts.com bookmarked yet, I highly recommend that you do. I always like to show how quickly I get into Paperless Parts since we are browser based. Any page that you come to often, I recommend that you bookmark it because you can go straight to the quotes page or wherever you want to go. In this case, we're actually going to head right to the part library. You guys will notice if you're not already a customer, if you don't have an existing part library, that this is organized by part. We do support the upload of many different file types from CAD models to Excel files to videos. And that's because we want you guys to be able to have a system of record for each part that you're either currently quoting or have quoted in the past. Both the technical data that you use to arrive at an estimate, as well as any decisions that you made while you're working on the quote that you can quickly reference if you ever need to requote that part. So we're going to start today with this assembly example here. This is not a super complex part. It's just a slightly longer print. And one of the things that we really worked on when we were adding these PDF viewer updates is making it easier to work with prints that have multiple pages. So I want to talk you guys through this. I know that it's not as ugly or gnarly as some of the prints that you may get from your buyers where there's maybe 10 parts in a single PDF and you have to parse through, but there's a couple things you can do to just make it easier to work through these prints, get the information that you need without getting lost in the drawing. So first thing that I'm going to do, super simple, but if you're not already doing it today, I'm going to collapse these sidebars here. For PDFs, that makes such a big difference in your view. We've added something called collapse sidebar retention. So if I ever come back in to look at a PDF again, those will stay collapsed. I won't have to do that every single time unless you reopen one, exit, and come back into a part. So we're retaining whatever view it is that you see best in and you find is most comfortable for you as you're quoting. One of the first things I notice about this print is that a couple of pages are rotated weird. It's not simple for me to just see as I walk through this information. I got to turn my head. I'm going to open this panel here. This is a new feature. If you guys haven't explored it yet, I highly recommend that you check it out. This panel will allow you guys to perform actions on multiple pages at the same time. So you may be familiar with going through and having to rotate individual pages. In this case, I can just go through and say, I know that page 2, 5, and then 8 and 9 need to be rotated. Select them, and then I can bulk rotate them. Just make it a little bit easier to see up front. The other thing is that a lot of the print on these PDFs is tiny. Obviously, they expect that if you're printing them out on your own, you guys will be able to read them, but I have really good eyesight. I actually can't see any of this information. So one thing that we brought to the forefront is our marquee zoom. That tool is available here in our navigation bar, but it's also a really quick keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to click Z on my keyboard, and then I can just click and drag over information that I want to read about this part. Makes it really easy to zoom in and find what it is that you're looking for without having to pinch and drag or scroll. What I want to do next is I'm going to talk through some of the tools that we have in here. So you'll notice that up here, I have annotate, shapes, redact, and measure. A lot of those are designed to mimic the processes that you guys already do when you're printing out your PDFs, marking them up on a table with a highlighter maybe or a pencil. We want you guys to be able to do all of that in paperless parts. So just as an example, let me fit to page. Maybe I'm scrolling down and I notice that this part looks pretty familiar to me. So it says 2-inch diameter. And I know that this is a part that we might have on our shelf already that we might not need to go out and get. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight this the same way that I would if I was to print it out and mark it up for my purchasing person. I'm going to come into our collaboration feature over here, chat. I'm going to add an annotation that's going to save the markup that I just made. And then I'll tag my purchaser, fake purchaser, and I'll say 2-inch inner diameter tube. Do we have these on the shelf? And send that. So a couple of things are going to happen with that. And there's more than one reason that I did this. It's not just saving me the time of walking across the shop floor to talk to Jake. It also means that Jake is going to immediately get context on what it is that I'm bringing to his attention. So if he clicks annotation, it will go to whatever view I was in and show the original highlight that I made. He can just reply in the thread. So he can send me a message saying yes or no. And then the next time again that I come to quote this part, I can see whether or not this was an inventory. So it's saving you the time of walking across the shop floor. It's showing that you're accounting for things, just making it a little bit easier to communicate and collaborate with your team. Another example over here, what I just showed you guys is something where maybe I need to work with a teammate in this chat feature, but we also consider it a note-taking feature. It is meant to be something that's for your personal system of record. Let's say for this part, I do notice that I need to deburr, remove all burrs and sharp edges. And that's something that I know that I'm going to need to account for when I'm writing working on the actual quote, a step for deburring. I can highlight this particular note here, add the annotation to chat, and then I'm going to add the actual text. So I'm going to say part needs to be deburred. And the reason I'm going through that extra step of saying part needs to be deburred is because any of the notes that you take in this collaboration section over here, they're going to be visible and accessible to you from the quote itself. So this part might already be in a quote. Let's take a look at our quotes tab to see whether or not it is, and it is. While I'm in here, I'll be reminded that I need to add a step or cost for deburring by opening the collaboration section. So I can see that there's one annotation, part needs to be deburred. The other thing is, if for whatever reason that's something that gets missed down the line, there's a system of record here. We call this the CYA factor, letting everybody know that you already took into account that the part needed to be deburred and that this was something that you thought about and considered. So there's a system of record for you and your team. I've got a couple of questions in the chat here. Is that highlight associative where I can click on it to get the annotation? Yes, James, I hope that I demonstrated that here. So in this case, that was the drawing that I took for Jake Purchaser. This one, yes, same thing, as long as I click on annotation. And the same thing is actually true if you're working on a model. Anytime you save an annotation, when you click on the little checkbox, it will take you to whatever that annotation is, including the initial view that you were in when you made that note. Any other questions just while we're here? All right, cool. One other nice thing, especially about longer PDFs like this, is that you can search for text. So there's two different ways that you can do that. If you're in a particular document and you want to find a word, let's say for this part, I don't see that I need a finish here for the entire assembly, but I do know that maybe one of these individual parts needs to be finished. I can search the document for the word finish. I do also have the option of searching in the search anything bar for a particular word. So let's say that there's a finish and I want to know what other parts I've had to get a quote for that specific finish on. I can search my entire account here using the search anything bar. I do always like to pitch that that's kind of like Google for your shop. Don't be underutilizing that. But in this case, I just want to know within the assembly whether or not there are any finishes that I need to be accounting for. And here I can see that there is a zinc plate finish on this particular part. So if I zoom out here, I can see that just this part needs zinc plating, this cap assembly. If you already have a relationship with your vendors where you're reaching out to them via email or over the phone, asking them for quotes on finishes, we have added the option of extracting pages. So this is something that's useful, not just when you need to download one particular page. Like in this case, I only need a quote for this cap assembly, not for the entire part. But if you get one of those really nasty PDFs where there's 10 parts in one RFQ and you need to go through and separate each one out so that you can quote them individually and have an accurate system of record, we've added extraction. So I would again open my panel, come here and click extract. And that's going to download this particular page of the document just as a single PDF. So if I need to reach out to a vendor and send them, hey, I just need a finish for this particular part of the assembly, I can send them only the information that they need. Any other questions? I see how many annotations can you use on a PDF? I've never seen somebody reach the limit. So Brian, if you're in Paperless, I challenge you to try. Let me know how many annotations you can use on a PDF. Is there a way to save the page rotation? It looks like it reverted back. Yeah, I did notice that it reverted back as well. My expectation is that it saves. If it doesn't, my suggestion would just be, and this is actually something that can be useful for things other than rotation as well. Once you make a change, under menu here, you can click download with annotations. So if it is valuable to you to make an annotation or to make some sort of change to the print and save it locally because you need to communicate with somebody else, you can always make a change like rotating the pages the way that they should be and downloading with annotations and then either re-uploading it to Paperless or doing whatever you need to do locally. But yes, I do think they are supposed to save. I noticed that too. Things only go wrong when you're presenting in a power lunch. Can you automate some annotations, such as scraping all the finish notes? You know, I've never heard of anybody doing that, but it is a really interesting question and definitely something that I would submit as product feedback to our team if that's something that you need to do, if there's a case where you're working off of a really large PDF and you need to find every single finish note at the same time. Great questions. I'm going to jump back into the flow here. You're welcome, James. Continue to send your questions in. We'll do an open Q&A again at the end. These are all really excellent questions, so keep them coming. All right. I'm actually going to go to another example now. So let's hop back to our parts library and we're going to take a look at this single component sheet metal part over here. A little bit less complex in our assembly. You guys will notice sidebar stayed collapse. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. In this case, let's say that I finished quoting this part, I sent it back to my customer, they responded and sent me a PO, but they also sent me a new revision of the part. So they were like, hey, we need you to quote / make revision, be willing to pay for it. I think, Allie, we have a poll question about revisions. I don't know if you want to send that out. Yeah, so first question here that I missed. Do you currently use a separate PDF viewing tool from Paperless Parts while quoting from prints? Curious to see what everybody says. And then we should have another one coming soon for comparison. All right, well, let me jump into our comparison functionality. So I know that can be a pain when you get those revisions, just staring at prints, having to figure out what the difference is between the two of them and why one is different from the other so that you don't miss any critical details. We've added a comparison tool to our PDF viewer. So I am currently quoting, I'm going to compare here in the panel. I'm currently quoting revision A. I'm going to upload the file for revision B. And what you see here is we have revision A and B layered on top of each other. Red content has been removed, so it's different from the original drawing. Oh, and I see, yes, a lot of you do currently use a separate PDF viewing tool from Paperless Parts while quoting from prints. I do hear that a lot. We're really hoping that with the changes that we've made in Paperless Parts, you guys will not have to pay for software systems like Adobe or Foxit. We are more secure, I think, than some of those systems. And we are also included in your subscription. So save you some money, keep you from having to go to another system. We're hoping that with these changes, you guys will be able to make the change to using Paperless as your exclusive PDF viewing tool. All right, so I have revision A and revision B here. Red content has been removed from the original print. So what I see here is there's only 2 red lines. Blue content has been added. So everything that's blue is new in Rev B from Rev A. The first thing that I noticed that I really want to hone in on over here is that there is a finish that's been added. But I'm having a really hard time reading what that is. It said none before, they've added some finish. I don't know what it is. I'm going to click the I here to just view revision B. And I can see that I actually need a finish for passivating, which is something that I didn't need in Rev A. So now I need to go to an outside vendor. I need to get a quote on passivation. I'm going to do that from inside Paperless this time. So I talked to you guys a little last time about downloading a page, extracting it from the PDF if you need to email it to a vendor. But we do encourage that you use external collaboration to communicate with people outside of your team securely and to keep information in one place. So in this case, let's say this is a slightly more sensitive part than the last one I was working on. Maybe it's CUI, or I just don't want my vendor to know who the buyer is. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a redaction to this part. So let's stop comparing. Let's get back to our PDF. I'm going to go to the Redact tab and click here, Redact. And then I can either highlight text that I don't want them to see. That's obviously not really the text I'm worried about, so I'll undo that. Or I can take large swaths of the PDF out here. So I know this is something you guys probably do currently have to do in other systems, or that you're doing manually, printing out the page using a Sharpie or a Post-it note. Once you have selected the information that you want to redact in Paperless, it's as easy as clicking this checkbox to apply redactions. And what's going to happen is that's going to save the redactions to a new PDF that is a supporting file to the initial part. There we go. You have 2 options now. You can either download that locally, do whatever you want with it, or like I said, you can communicate with your vendor from within Paperless Parts. So let's open the chat box here. We were in team before. That was us communicating with other people on our team or keeping our own notes for us and our organization. We're going to go to external this time and click start new chat. From here, we're going to enter a chat name. So let's say request for passivation quote. You can invite people either from your existing contacts. Maybe I have Polcari's plating and finishing, and they're going to get an email. It's going to be an invitation for them to create a free Paperless Parts account, or it will just have some information in the body of the email. So in this case, I'm going to say, need a quote for passivation quantities 1025. So they'll be able to see that just within the email itself, and then they'll have a link either to see the part in Paperless if they already have an account or make a free account. You can invite a ton of people. I've had customers in the past that want to reach out to like 15 different vendors for a quote. So they'll put all of those emails in and send all the invites separately so the vendors can't see they're kind of on an email list. If they do accept the invite, they'll have separate chats each. And then with the interest of security, you have control over what the other person can and can't see, because I know it kind of feels like you're inviting them into your Paperless Parts space. But again, you really have control of what they can see or do. So permissions, maybe I want them to be able to upload a supporting file. I want them to be able to attach a quote for passivation that I can reference the next time I go to quote this part. But I probably don't want them to be able to download this file locally, so I'm not going to check that option. And then I can choose what they can access. So I don't want them to see the PDF, but I want them to see just the redacted version. Or if you have a model and a redacted PDF, you can always do multiple files. So you can control what they can see. And all of these options you can update after initiating the chat. I can also put an expiration date on it and say, I don't want you to be able to look at this part after the 16th. Click start chat. There we go. So that contact will receive an email if they either have a paperless parts account or choose to create an account, we'll be able to have a conversation about the quote in here. Means that we're working from the same sheet of music. You guys asked about annotations kind of taking you to the right place. Let's say that I want to call out to my vendor that these parts need masking before they do any finishing. I can add an annotation in external chat and say, these holes will need masking. And they'll be able to see what it is that I'm referring to really quickly. So it's a great way for you and your vendor to communicate. It is much more secure than attaching a part file to an email. Malware can live in part files that you attach to emails. And in this case, you're just sending somebody a link rather than an actual file in an email. So for sake of preserving the digital thread and keeping you and the people that you work with safe, we strongly recommend that you consider using external collaboration. All right, I've got a couple of questions in the chat and the Q&A, so I'm going to dive in here. Can the redaction box be made white so it doesn't use a lot of ink? Yes, John, actually, it absolutely can. I'm going to answer that right now. So let me give an example. Let's go back to Redact. Once you take your redaction, you can click on it here. There's a little style palette, and then you can change the fill. So in this case, we'll make it white. We're probably also going to need to change the stroke on the outside. Let's make that white as well. Yep. And then once you save, redacted, super redacted PDF. Oh, I think I made it transparent, not white, but yes, sorry. That is how you do it. You go into the little option with the palette. I definitely just made it transparent. And you can adjust the color to whatever it is that you want it to be. Can annotations be added to redacted drawings? Yes, they can, Sam. So once you have made the redaction and saved the redacted file as a supporting file, you can do whatever you want to it. I mean, I'm here in this. Oh, that's why we didn't see the option. I didn't make it transparent. We just hadn't gone to the right file yet. So once you go to your super redacted PDF and you're in the right file, yes, you can add any annotation that you want from this point. It's essentially just saved as an entirely new PDF that has a black square there. There's nothing functionally different from this and any other PDF that you're notating in Paperless Parts. When it is sent to the vendor, will they know to click the annotation button or does something guide them to that? That's a good question. We have actually, and this is my role, so this is something that I do, we do send out little pop-ups. You guys might have noticed recently, I don't know if you went into a thread at any point, but yeah, there we go. You'll get a little beacon that will guide you towards the right option here. We haven't sent out one recently nudging people to select the annotation, but that is a really great point and definitely something that we can consider doing. What other questions do we have? I know we just went through 2 in the Q&A. Can you print without downloading the PDF first? That's a great question. I have not seen anybody try. Our name is Paperless Parts, so anytime the word print comes up, I do get a little, it's not something that we're thinking about as much as I think you guys are, but I think you would have to download it locally before printing. I haven't seen anybody try another way yet. To my knowledge, that would be the thing you would have to do is download it first. Good question. Can external chats include the quantities without physically retyping? Great question. As of right now, our external collaboration is tied to the part and not necessarily the quote. So we assume that you can see over here, I'm looking at quotes and orders. This part is only found in one quote. If this part was found in 2 or 3 quotes, I might have different quantity breaks on each of those quotes. So when you start a collaboration here, you're sharing the part with the vendor, not the actual quote. And the quantity is not really something that's inherent to the part. It's not a feature of the part. It would be for a quote. So you do need to type it in order to add that context to the conversation. And that's partially, I'm talking about the complex idea that it's tied to a part and not a quote, but it's also because in the interest of security, we don't want external collaboration to include quote details. When you initiate an external share with your vendor, you're not sharing anything about the quote with them, including quantity breaks. So you would have to manually type it in, and we do that because we want you guys to not accidentally share anything. Does that make sense? I see another Q&A. Somebody's asking, can you also add text to a print? You absolutely can. I want to be clear that I haven't gone through all of the features today. We only had 30 minutes, so I wanted to make sure I gave you some of the heavy hitters, but there are plenty of other things that you can do here that we didn't cover. So we were looking at annotate before we were drawing, we were highlighting. You can just do free text. You have the option to add a little note symbol so that somebody knows that you have an annotation. You can do giant blocks of shapes. So one thing I like to do is I keep my shapes somewhat transparent. That way you can highlight like entire shapes or sections of the PDF really easily. And you can take measurements as well. So we can do distance, arc length, perimeter, and then area of both some simple shapes and some more complex ones. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. Rick and I go way back. It's good to see you. Anybody else? I know we're coming up against our time here, but this works much better sending files via protected zip file, etc. Do you mean that external collaboration works better than sending files? I think I'd need a little more context, Adolph. Good to see you too, also, but. Let's see. Better then. Awesome. I'm very happy to see it. Impressive demo. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Before everybody leaves, I do just want to let you know that if you want a demo, a custom demo, let me reshare my screen here, can reach out to a member of our team. There we go. Register for another session if you want to see more of our features or schedule a personalized demo at paperlessparts.com/demo, or you are more than welcome to email me with any questions directly about the PDF viewer or other stuff that I work on. I handle our knowledge base, the pop-ups that you see in the platform. Always happy to chat about paperless parts. Appreciate your time today.